Hello. We're back.
What's going on, y'all?
What up?
SJ.
Round of Mountain Dews to my friends.
Oh, yeah. Dang, look at he's double fisting over there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You could never not be too thirsty.
Dang. His kidneys are like,
They're busted at the seams.
screw my kidneys, man. They hate him.
You know what they say, you only live once.
YOLO. YOLO. Well, today we're having, man, we've been building this up for a long time, I feel like. From like last summer.
This is our WrestleMania.
I think the LP was when we built up and everybody was like, man, come on. And finally did it. And now it's college stories.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
College ghost stories, paranormal stories. Or as I said, I think in another one, Scholastic.
Scholastic. The book fair?
Is that a Pawnee word? That Scholastic? No.
Yes.
Trained y'all right over there, sound like.
Yeah.
Yes, it's our top word. It means book. Oh, no.
I thought it meant Lamborghini posters.
I thought it meant take $20 out of your mom's purse and buy some books.
Buy some Goosebumps.
Junie B. Jones now.
Man, you know how many Goosebumps books I have? It's crazy.
Dang, what was the other one? There was another one. Not Nancy Drew. Nancy Drew? Who was the other? Hardy Boys? What was another one?
Whoa.
I'm not throwing these throwbacks, aren't they? What was
Those
another
are
one?
like my time.
Man. Yeah, those are like...
Man, I don't know why. Okay, maybe I'm out.
Ardola's a ghost.
Man.
Oh, you're talking about... I think... I know. I think he's talking about Encyclopedia Brown. That one? That was one when I was a kid.
That's crazy. Y'all don't know what those are.
I just remember.
I know what they are.
Dang, I'm out here naming things from the 1920s on y'all.
Y'all ever hear of this book called The Bible?
Dante's
Yes,
Nancy Drew,
Yes.
The Hardy Boys.
Dante Inferno's anybody? No.
Dang.
Something from the 1800s.
Y'all ever hear of this guy named Homer, the Iliad? This new cat?
just hot off the presses.
Just
hot off
on the scene?
Wrote a great story.
Yeah,
I don't know if y'all have heard that or not.
An adventure.
Some guy, some islands.
Golly, man.
No, but this episode is all college. You know, we asked people to send in stories to us. You know, if you when you went to college and had a paranormal experience in a dorm room or just anywhere on campus.
Some of y'all. Oh, go ahead.
Do what now?
I was going to say, some of y'all didn't heed our warning. We asked y'all to keep it clean.
But we had a great turnout of stories, and I believe we also have personal stories as well. I know Chris has been around to different campuses, and he's probably got some personal stories about, you know, the paranormal at college dorms and everything. And so, but we have some stories. I'm going to start it off with this one from, hold on. Okay. Make sure they want credit. Jalen Whitehorn sent me this. So I have this one story from college a couple years ago. My friend and I were in our apartment, just the two of us watching a movie. I can't remember what movie it was. But we were about halfway through the movie, and our third roommate came back from work and went in his room to change. He came out and talked to us for a minute and went to the balcony to smoke a cigarette. We were still watching this movie and we're locked in. I heard the door to the balcony open and saw Jake on the corner of my eye walk into his room, but paid no attention to it. About 2 seconds after that, he walked into his room. I heard Jake clear his throat from the balcony. I looked to my left and saw Jake still outside smoking a cigarette, and I looked into his room that had the door still open. I didn't say anything for a minute, then looked and asked him if he saw saw him. I looked and asked my friend if she saw him walk in, and he said, I thought I saw him walk into his room also, but didn't say anything because you didn't say anything. And we still talk about this from time to time, but he used to work for an estate sale company and used to bring back stuff from his work that he thought were interesting or unique. My only assumption was that something he brought home still belonged to someone who passed on. I heard about that.
Yeah.
They say I was told like garage sales or estate sales too, just leave them out in your car so you don't bring them in for a couple of days. And I think my sister-in-law was telling me that because we go to estate sales a lot too, and we buy a bunch of stuff, and she was saying like, oh, if you guys do that, just leave them out in your car and for a few days and then bring them in to kind of not have that happen, because that's somebody else's possession and you don't know if they're still attached to it or not.
I know when all my stuff goes. I've done cursed everything, so not
So that's why you buy it.
that's right. I buy it, then I put a curse on it, then I put it on the shelf. No, I'm just kidding.
Dang, the whispers of bad medicine are running in my ears right now on TikTok.
But I actually have heard that too. We even talked about that too for cursed objects. I think that was before you joined the crew, but buying something that has some kind of bad medicine on it or some kind of bad juju on it. And
That's why I know, like, some of my relatives, they say if you buy something like that, make sure you smoke it off.
that's what I've heard too.
Don't bring it in till you smoke it off,
Yeah.
So otherwise, you don't know that person passed away with it or it meant something to them or, whatever, or worse, it was gifted to them to take someone out, know. So you're dealing with a lot of things when you get stuff from those estate sales. But I know a lot of people do that. I just look at people crazy when they tell me, I got this from a estate sale.
Yeah, I've also heard too, like, especially like, I'm gonna say weapons, but I mean like knives and stuff too. You're supposed to smoke those things off too. Get any bad.
Oh yeah, especially weapons.
Yeah,
weapons.
like I say mainly knives because I don't buy guns. I don't own a gun or nothing, but but just like knives and any kind of like ceremonial things too. I've heard too.
That's old Creek way. Where they would say smoke those guns off.
Yeah.
And they also used to do that before they go out and hunt too. Because they say those animals had their own medicine. So again, you wanted to make sure you doctor things up good, but nowadays they don't tell nobody that. But the thing I always think about when people purchase things, I've told this story before on air and different places. I had a relative that was known to play that piano real well, and which cracks me up because his name was Spooky Hill. And again, I come from a big family. And he was well known throughout Indian country. Boy, he could flat play that piano. He'd get asked, from different churches to play, and when he passed away, he died kind of suddenly as a young man because diabetes, and he passed away real quick. And anyway, the church that he was attending got a hold of my dad, and said, this piano belonged to him. So we wanted to give it to somebody from his family, and nobody really would accept it. So my dad said, "Well, I'll take it and I'll donate it to a church or something." So he put that piano on our porch, and every night you would hear it playing. And till my dad found a church home for it, every night you would hear that thing play. And like I said, my aunts would say, you get anything from there, smoke it off, So I always think about that story, that experience, and I always tell, my kids and everybody, I say, you guys go get us something from a estate sale. Make sure you smoke it off because, you never know what you might bring home.
I have a story from Moni Leaf. I know she shared multiple stories with all of us, but like I said, college edition. So she's got it's just kind of a decently long story, but I'm going to read it to you guys in her words. It was around 1986 when I was a teenager. at Sequoia High School in Tahlequah. Near the end of the year, it was All Hallows Eve. A group of 6 of us had asked the dorm matrons to share some spooky stories from their days at the school. She didn't want to give the names of the teachers, but Mrs. W said she could sometimes hear a baby crying inside the walls of room 219. Mrs. L said on the grounds behind the female dorm, you would see a female in white floating across the yard, and she had sometimes been seen looking through the second floor window. Miss T said while working in the office one night, she heard a young female cry in the hall. She got up to check on her, but once in the hall, the crying seemed to be coming from the stairs. She proceeded to go to the stairs with the flashlight in hand. Once there, the sound was coming from on down the hall on the second floor. She went to call security after our night of I guess she went to call security after that. After our night of hearing these stories, we decided it would be fun to scare the matrons on duty. We got another group of girls on the first floor to build a man and sit him in a chair at the end of the dimly lit hallway. The other group of girls tied yarn to the legs of the chair and slowly pulled it at the same time to make it appear that the man was coming their way. Our preparations were complete. I called up to Miss T. Miss T basically she says, Miss T, come look. Hurry, there's a man in the female dorm at the end of our hall. She grabbed her walkie-talkie and the flashlight. She cautiously came down the few stairs that led onto the first floor and looked left. Nothing. She slowly turned and I whispered, look, down there. She shined her light in the direction and said in a loud whisper that we were supposed to be sleeping, but she also said, who are you and how did you get in here? The other group of girls, they were sitting with their doors open, pulling the yarn to make it appear that he was sliding towards us. Miss T asked if it was a prank my friends were pulling. I opened the door and had my friends come out and witness this scary thing at the end of the hall. After a few minutes of Miss T trying to communicate with this man and him not responding, she decided to walk towards him. She stepped lightly and cautiously. As she got closer to the doors of the room that were pulling the yarn, she shined the flashlight on the girls on both sides and gave... Oh, man. That was weird. She shined the light on the girls on both sides of the hallway and gave a small scream and a big laugh. She said we gave her a real scare and had her going for a minute. As we all stood there laughing and carrying on, she mentioned we needed to get in bed and put your boyfriend back outside.
God.
And we all laughed and agreed. My four friends and I decided it was our mess and we will disassemble him. And obviously that would give them more time to be awake, is what she said. We were more than half of the hallway away from him. Miss T was shining her flashlight in our direction. The man had stood up. We screamed. She threw the light. He took about 3 slow steps, fell to a limp on the floor, and everyone scattered to their respective areas. The next morning, our man was found partially disassembled in the area where the woman in white is sometimes seen. His clothes were tossed away by security, and the night our school dance, he was seen in the bleachers of the football field.
What?
Man.
Whoa.
God.
Dang.
Man, that's crazy.
That is. That's very intense too.
I know. I was like, I could feel myself getting into the story. Like, what was that?
I was trying to check our TikTok because I released that video like saying, "Hey, we're doing a college edition." So I was wanting to make sure that nobody had any stories on that comment section. But it was weird because my phone is turned down, but yet it still played as if the volume was not turned down.
Man,
I don't know how that's possible. That's why I was like, that was weird. It wasn't supposed to do that.
Dang.
She's got another story. I guess I'll tell that here in a second. Chris, if you want to go ahead, I know you have yours queued up, ready to go.
All righty. Again, I'm going to call upon this old one right here to protect me during this time. Again, this one's from my nephew. He attended University of Oklahoma. Let me see if I can get this to play right.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kingston. I want to thank y'all for allowing me to share my story here. I had my first paranormal experience caught on camera at the University of Oklahoma. I was a freshman in 2011, but the actual event itself took place in the spring of 2012. I had a group of buddies of mine. We would always meet in the Bazell Memorial Library. And for anyone that knows OU, they would tell you that the Bazell Library at night is pretty scary. We were all studying. We actually had this usual spot in the new part of the library. We just went to the lower level, and there was a corner that was never taken. So we would all study there most days from 10 o'clock till 2 a.m. when they kicked us out. And so we did this for weeks and months. But there was an old entrance into the old library, and you could walk down to the lower level, and you would have to go down these halls in order to get to the new part, and that was where we would study. But in those halls, there was a place called the Stacks, and the Stacks was a group of old texts, literature, archives, kind of thing, and it was always closed off with a cage door, so you could always look inside or breathe in it, but you could never go in it because it was always locked. So one night when we got done studying, it was 2 a.m. and we decided to leave. We were going to go back to Adams Tower to get a late night meal because there was a Burger King at the lower level, if anyone remembers during that time. So we decided to, instead of going throughout the new part, we decided to take the long hallways past the Stacks and go out the old entrance because it was a closer walk back to the dorms. And as we were walking through the halls, we noticed that the doors were open in the Stacks. And so, I don't know, I've heard that the library was haunted, but for some reason there was something in my brain that told me to take out my iPad and start taking pictures. And I must have took hundreds and hundreds of pictures, walking up and down each aisle and things like that. And as we were walking down the South Oval back to the dorms, I was looking through the photos, and one caught my eye. It was different from the rest. And when I looked at this photo, I was shocked because it was not normal, to say the least, because it looked like there was a face looking at me. And so I looked at the picture before and the picture after, and it was not there. And what also freaked me out the most is in the picture, you can see where my hands are kind of shaky. Maybe it was because I was walking. But you can see the glare where the picture and the pixels, I guess, in it are blurry. But the face is stuck there in perfect pixel. And so I turned to my friends and I asked them, look at this picture. What do you see? I didn't point out where the face was, and they all gasped and they all pointed at the same direction. And it was a face, and it really traumatized us. That night, I did not want to go back to Burger King. I really just wanted to go to my dorm, shut the door, and go to sleep because it really terrified me. And the next day, we decided to meet for lunch in the Cake Cafeteria, and we were all sitting around, and one of my buddies who actually lived in Adams, he came and met with us, and he had this really stunned look on his face. And so my buddy, he turned to him and said, "Hey, you all right?" And he goes, I don't know, man. He goes, after I saw that picture, I went to sleep. I woke back up. It was about 4:30, and it felt like I was awake, but I was in a dream. And he went on and said, I tried to get up, but I could not move. And he said that he tilted his head over and looked in the corner, and he saw this black purplish figure sitting right there. And he didn't know whether it was a dream or if he was awake, but he felt awake at that time. And so all he knew was to shut his eyes and go back to sleep. So when he woke up and came and told us that, he was really traumatized by it. So I don't know if that had anything to do with what I caught on camera that night. And, you know, going back to hearing the rumors about the library being haunted, you know, I heard that, you know, there was a kid in the 50s that hung himself because of the stress of finals. I think he was a bad student or something, but he just couldn't handle the pressure, and so he hung himself. So I don't know if that's related to what I caught on camera. It's, you know, it's just a rumor, but, you know, anything's possible in that situation. But, you know, going through kind of looking more into the history of the University of Oklahoma, I found out a few details that were just astonishing to me, because there's a lot more paranormal experiences, I guess, that are kind of urban legend, but it seems like people know about these stories. And there's that story about the roller skate kid that was that keeps roaming the halls in Ellison Hall. And I guess Ellison Hall used to be a hospital back in the day. I think during World War II, he was on Elm Avenue, which is right down the road from Ellison and the Bazell Library. And I guess he got struck by a car and was taken to that hospital where he later suffered his death. And then on that same street, just down the road, it is now called Zorro Hall. But I guess it used to be an old sorority house, but there used to be an exorcism performed there. And so Elm Street, or Elm Avenue, is pretty known for its paranormal experiences. And then back in 1986, Cake Cafeteria, I didn't know this, but apparently it has a basement. And so I guess there's a dumbwaiter, and a student had a tragic accident where his head was decapitated in that dumbwaiter. And then in 1996, a person by the name of Cameron Lee Smith was in a house, I guess a boarding house they would say, right off DeBar Avenue, which is now called Dean's Row. It is, the house is right next to the parking lot behind the Campus Corner Market convenience store. And this person, Cameron, he went crazy and cut off his neighbor's head and walked around, I guess, in that Campus Corner parking lot and put it in a dumpster, where cops later found it and arrested him. And then I don't know if this happened during my freshman year. This is another creepy thing. I think that could be related to the Adams Tower. Either it was in the fall of 2011 or spring of 2012 when I caught that paranormal experience. But my freshman year, I remember that a student tried to commit suicide out of Adams Tower, where my buddy had that experience of seeing that dark figure. So I don't know if these are all related and all the same. I just know that OU is known for its paranormal experiences, and, you know, there's just something creepy about that place. But thank you for allowing me to share some stories. If you guys want to look into the things that I said, go ahead. I would be intrigued to learn what you find. So thank you for allowing me to have this time, and Boomer Sooner.
Boomer! Oh, I'm sorry.
Nah,
I had to do it real quick. My bad.
I want to say a ho to my nephew again. You know, right now I don't never ever say anything good about University of Oklahoma, but I think at this time they're leading the pack on the paranormal. So anyway, you guys listening in that didn't send in stories from your school, that's on you. So I will give him a Boomer Sooners.
Hey, there we go.
And here's the picture that he sent. See if you can find the face.
Oh, dang.
And again, I think that's pretty cool. And
Sure enough.
I think that was pretty awesome. And I really want to thank Kingston for telling that, because I know even to this day, him just talking about it kind of puts him on edge.
You could tell in the way he was telling it. You could tell it was kind of...
Yeah. So, I mean, he still kind of, resonates with him, on his experience. So, again, I really want to say a ho to you.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for sending those stories. Is it Kingston, right? Is that his name?
Yes.
Because I just so happen to have a book full of all of those stories that you just talked about. And I bought this book a long time ago. It's called Campus Ghost Stories of Norman, Oklahoma. And it was funny, before we even went on air, I was telling those exact same stories about the suicide jumpers, and I didn't say the roller skate boy, but that story is in here. And I think I had told on a previous episode the story of Connections, the guy that cut the other guy's head off, and they found the head, or they found the guy's body in the bathtub, and it was over some CDs or something. But yeah, I went to school at OU, and I went there from like 95 to 2000. And probably the scariest thing that ever happened to me was I graduated with an art degree from there. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. I graduated with a fine arts degree. No, I'm just kidding. But I'd always heard stories, going to the art school there about that big Mustang. They have a big sculpture. It's a big old blue, like fiberglass. It's like white and fiberglass Mustang sculpture out in front of the art museum. And the story, it has like red glowing eyes and everything too. And everybody always called it the demon horse. But the story behind that, though, is that the artist, his name is Luis Jimenez. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Was killed during the construction of that statue. The story goes is that he was assembling it in his studio, wherever his studio was at, when a piece of the statue had come loose, and it swung out and like nicked him like in an artery, and he bled to death, and pinned him in and he bled to death. And it wasn't until years later that his family actually finished it and then donated it to the University of Oklahoma, where it's, as far as I know, stands today. But yeah, they always said, like, don't ever walk in the shadow of that statue or you won't graduate was a story that I've always heard, or bad things could happen to you. I've also heard don't walk under the shadow of the clock tower. That's another one, that bad things could happen to you if you walk under the shadow of that. But one of the stories I'd always heard is from Walker Tower, about two people that committed suicide at the towers there. And I had some friends that lived in Walker Tower, and they always said, like, the weirdest things always happened in that dormitory. Weird things like fires. There would always be like random fires, or the fire alarm would go off, or the smoke alarm would go off for no reason, or they were always having plumbing issues, or there would be weird graffiti that they would find, or just strange acts of like vandalism, like maybe a broken window that no one would claim, or, just weird things that are always happening, sounds and noises, and just, kind of, I don't want to say technological, but just like all these weird mishaps, electrical mishaps or like whatever. And the story goes, and I'm going to actually this is the book here that I have, and that way I don't really miss any spots. But they say that it's possible that the ghosts of these two individuals that committed suicide from the same tower roam those halls. And the first one happened in 1971. It says there was a freshman named Alan Floyd Atkinson was stumbling despondently around the 8th floor, and he carried a wine bottle and was believed by a collection of students playing cards in the lounge to be under the influence. When he tried forcing an elevator door open, They summoned the resident advisor. But before they could calm him down, Atkinson had charged at one of the windows in the lounge. The plate glass is built into the wall, making the opening the windows impossible. It is thick enough that someone actually falling would not be any danger of it breaking. Whether through his determination or perhaps his use of brain-addling enhancement drugs such as PCP, Atkinson somehow managed to break through the window and launched himself with such force that his body nearly reached the street from the center of the building before the 8th floors of space ran out. In his room, officers found papers that his roommate described as a Dear John letter from his girlfriend. And then it says another jumper, and Walker's most famous, also leaped due to emotional turmoil. And this one happened on Friday, September 22nd, 1967. There was a 39-year-old man named Frank Green who was released from General State, which, if anybody knows anything about Norman, they have a lot of like mental facilities there, mental health facilities. Griffin Memorial Hospital is probably the most famous. And then the one that I was talking about, that your nephew was talking about, is called Connections. It's kind of like a halfway house. It's kind of where those people go once they're released from Griffin. But anyway, the mental hospital, after voluntarily checking himself in the previous Tuesday, he had supper there a little before 6 p.m. And then it says later on foot, he hailed a checker cab taxi of Miss Lucy Steeves, who noted the smell of alcohol on him. Green asked her to drive him to the new tower on campus, as they had not even gotten their official names yet. The fare came to $4.35, but he only had $1. On the tip, he said that he was going to, or on the trip, he told the driver that he was going to jump. When Green exited the taxi on Asp, where students still unload their laundry baskets and computers today, he went into the building, rode up on the elevator, along with a man named Ted Wise, who was a student from another college who was visiting a friend in the building. Green saw that Wise was getting off at the 10th floor and said that he was going on the 12th floor to jump off. Wise, somewhat shaken, exited the elevator as planned. He told Blaine Stephen, an Oklahoma Highway Patrol recruiter who was staying in the dorm as part of a university program, about the man. Stephen then raced upstairs to investigate. In the meantime, Green had gotten off on the 12th floor, as he had said, and walked to the window of the lounge. He took a chair. He broke out the glass. Green calmly kicked out the remaining pieces of glass from the windows, brushed clean the concrete ledge beyond, and then stepped outside. The noise caught the attention of people on the sidewalk, and they began gathering below. Word spread quickly, and within minutes, more than 200 spectators had congregated. Green sat down on the ledge, over 100 feet in the air, and he scooted forward, dangling his feet over the side of the concrete. Students began calling up to Green, asking what he was doing, and Green yelled back that he was going to jump. For whatever reason, the crowd of college students did not really take him seriously, and they all began to chant, "Jump, jump, jump." Whenever someone yelled up loudly enough for him to hear, Green would yell back. Some of the replies is, "You're darn right, I'm going to jump," is what he has said. But yeah, so I guess they kind of enticed him to jump. I'm kind of it just keeps kind of going on about that, is that there's a lot of back and forth between that young man and the crowd below. Jump, jump, jump. They basically egged him on, and then when he finally did it, the crowd shifted when he said he killed himself right then and there. But they say that, of course, it's not, you can't see it from the street or you can't see it from the inside, but on that ledge on the 12th floor at Walker Tower, his name is on the outside edge where he jumped off. It's engraved on that ledge as kind of a remembrance to him. But yeah, so that was a story that I had always that I had heard about and they say that the ghosts of those two guys roamed that dormitory. I'd also heard stories of ghosts being in the library, because that library goes below like not 6 stories, but 6 levels down below the school library. And they always said, like, don't be in there by yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you never go to the library by yourself because weird things would happen. So I don't want to take up any more time because I know everybody else has got stories. But check out this book, the stories that your nephew was talking about. They're all in here. The roller skate kid, the guy from Connections, the one that I had told, The Exorcism is also in here. This is a really, really cool book. It's called Campus Ghost Stories of Norman, Oklahoma. The author is Jeff Provine. He is a paranormal investigator who wrote this book. This is part of his Haunted America series. So check it out. It's awesome. I don't know if it's still in print. I got it years and years back, but hopefully you can still find it.
You got the final copy, Todd.
I don't know about that,
No.
but anyway. But there's all kinds of great stories. I like just like that.
I just want to say again, OU's leading it up, guys. If you didn't send in your story, you might want to send one in because right now OU's got it right now.
They about 7-0 right now.
I know it.
Right. National champs.
I know it. Ghost storytelling right now. They're leading the pack, guys. So
They're making up for it.
Let's not. Hey, come on now, man.
now, tell that story, Russell. We want to hear that.
2023. Looking for a bounce back. No.
Man,
Revive that 2022.
that's the ghost of Christmas's past right there, man. We need to let
The
that
ghost
go.
of seasons past.
Hey, I was going to say TCU did kind of help us out a little bit, though. It's not the
Man,
biggest
they
blowout.
got a bad ghost story.
It did belong to us, USC, but hey, we'll take it.
Man.
I know that somebody wrote about that after that TCU game, and I honestly forgot about that USC game. And they're like the team that had the worst blowout ever. That was a national title game, right?
Yeah, it was like 56
It was 56-19, and they brought. I was like, oh yeah, dang, I forgot. And then what was it, 64-0? Or
It was
TCU?
it was
something
bad.
like
they
that.
only scored like 7 points.
Yeah, it was bad.
yeah,
I
that's
think they had the Water Boys in the fourth quarter.
so a new ghost took over.
I know. Thank him up above on that one. God, y'all got man. I ain't gonna say nothing. Next story here.
Whoa. We rendered him speechless.
I don't even know what to say.
Man, he got...
Go ahead, you.
That never happens. He's always got something to say.
Man,
Well, at least you're winning this.
we're 7-0 right now.
God.
We'll take that. We'll take that right now.
I know, like Chris said, we're trying to get stories for a long time.
Yeah.
And shout out to the OU people, giving us these stories and everything. I mean, they're freaking awesome in this book, man.
That book is killer.
I just
It
put
is
my-
so good.
I just put my finger in it, open it up, and it says The Exorcism.
Yeah.
I want to hear about that.
Yeah. These are good. That supposedly happened at a sorority house. There was a girl that I guess she had come. I don't really know I only know that it happened on Campus Corner, that they were trying to get her out of the sorority house and they didn't quite make it, so they had to call the priest to meet them on the street corner, around Campus Corner, and they had to do the exorcism right there in the street.
Dang.
Yeah.
I thought
That
you
was
was
the story.
I thought you were gonna say she had that chimichanga from that Mexican
Yeah,
restaurant.
Tarahumara.
They had to exercise her right there on the spot, boy. That way.
Boy, yeah, she got
Like
she
that.
wandered a little too close to sugars. Boy, I got some haunted stories about that place.
Yahola, you got one?
So I'm going back to Moni Leaf here. She's got her second story. This is her senior year in 1988. This is at Tahlequah Sequoia in Tahlequah. So the story starts out. She only went to the first semester of her senior year. Her mom and her dad came to town for a revival, and he was preaching at the Cedar Tree. My mom was waiting for me as I packed my bags for the weekend to check out. I told her I needed to go get my jacket from my friend Annette from Annette's room. Let's see here. And she said it took her about 5 minutes. She came back to the room. The main light was off, but the light above my mirror was barely lit. My mom sat there looking horrified. I asked if she's okay as I tried to turn my light on. She stared through my mirror. I sat down beside her and looked. I seen what she was staring at. In my mirror was an image of what appeared to be a decomposing native child looking through. not seeing us but looking. We sat on the bed frozen. The pillow on the top bunk next to my bed started to flip. The curtain to my closet swung open, and a couple of items came off the top shelf. My roommate came in, went to her closet to get a shirt. Something small ran from it and into the mirror. By then, we all screamed. My mom left the room quickly, and her and her roommate stood there staring. Tears began to fill up in my eyes. I put my hand on her shoulder and told her we need to go. She nodded and said, "I know." She said, "Who's that?" Or who's that? Ooh, that doesn't. I know who that is. Oh, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." She said, "I know who that is." That's the thing I've been that's the thing that's been sitting on my bed watching us sleep. I grabbed my weekend bag. She grabbed something. We ran from the room. My mom was sitting in the car waiting for me, and I asked my roommate if she could come with us. She went to check her out. My roommate sat in the back. I was in the front seat with my mom. I turned around and asked if she was okay, and she nodded no. When my mom got in the car, I told her my roommate had seen it also. I didn't want to give the roommate's name either. That's why I keep saying roommate. My roommate interrupted and told my mom that the thing we seen in the mirror followed her from a reservation in Arizona, that it had harassed her mother until she committed suicide and then attached to her. My mom and dad pulled me from Sequoia before Christmas break. I told them many stories of my experiences and that I had there, and apparently it took my mom experiencing something for them to believe me.
What oh. Now we got Sequoia.
Sequoia?
Yep.
Stepping in, taking on the University of Oklahoma. No. So, again, you guys didn't send in your stories. I don't know, but I got this story for you Haskell Rascals out there. They want to represent Dora Josephine Williams. I'm going to have Tyler read this story. Oh, yeah. She's going to represent the Haskell Rascals at this time.
Let me see what we got here. One incident that I still talk about from Haskell was back in 2014. It was my third semester up there. Second semester in Row Cloud Hall. This semester I had a roommate that I had never met before. Heard a few things about her, but that was about it. One weekend, I didn't go back to Pawhuska and decided to stay. That same weekend, she wasn't doing anything either. Anyway, we hung out in our room trying to get to know each other, and since we'll be living with each other. After watching a movie, I remember falling asleep and waking up to laughing from her side of the room. And I thought, "Buh, she probably just snuck her boyfriend back in there." So I rolled back over to face the wall and tried to go back to sleep. Heard the laughing again, but this time it was from our closet. I rolled around, seeing that she was still asleep, and it was just us in our room. I noticed a movement in the reflection of our mirror. Then the closet door cracked back open. I again rolled back over and tried to act like I didn't see anything. Again, the laughing started. I turned to see if it was my roommate was laughing in her sleep like a weirdo, but I seen something peeking its head around the corner of our closet door. It looked like a clown, and it kept laughing at me. I hurried and rolled back over and covered my face, hoping it would go away soon. The next morning, I asked my roommate if she had heard anything. She gave me a weird look and asked if I had seen anything. I told her what I saw and what it looked like. And again, she gave me a weird look and said that she didn't know I could see things. Then she told me that she had things follow her from her home and that this was the first time that anyone else could sense and see it too. And this is what the clown looked like in the closet. And let me tell you, when I scrolled down, about
double deuced.
About deuced it?
Yeah,
Double deuced.
I about made a mess. But it looks like one of those Kachina. But let me show y'all first, I guess. And then I'll show
Man, nah, I'm good.
I was not ready to see that.
I'm good.
Let's give it up for those Haskell Rascals.
Appreciate that.
All right, so this one's from I and Walayla Knight sent this to me. So shout out to you, Walayla. Dang, she said this a long time ago. We're finally getting to it. Every time I see her, I say, "We're recording it."
Be lying.
We're trying to gather everything up. But thank you for your patience and thank you for the story. But so I went to college in Santa Fe at IIA for museum studies. I did a student program and event. An event was hired to work at IIA Museum of Contemporary Native Arts and Collections, transferring their slide images to digital format and upload to collections program. The fun part was always taking a break from the taking a break to help install upcoming exhibits. Being a contemporary museum, there's not a lot of traditional pieces, but people would still donate pieces, particularly sacred objects that needed to be returned to the pueblo or tribes from the area. They'd hold them until it could be returned properly, and they stored them with as much respect as possible. When I worked there, they had a Kachina doll in the conservation lab where I worked. It was an individual box constructed from mat board with 3 walls and a door with the window. The collections curator told me that sometimes it would whistle. The doll was not happy to be in a museum, but it wasn't angry either, so it would whistle. I was pretty skeptical. I had been working there pretty regularly for a few months, and usually in the conservation lab by myself when one day I heard the whistle. It freaked me out. I called my Danae roommate thinking she'd calm me down, but she also freaked out and made me even more scared. Needless to say, I definitely kept a closer eye on that Kachina doll and showed a little more respect. And that was it.
Man.
All right, let's give IA a round of applause here. They had their story, so that's a good one. But I want to say, Haskell Rascals ain't done yet. They're fire number 2.
They not done.
Mary Jane Martin. I'm going to let Tyler read this one too.
Yes. Let's see here. It says, good afternoon. My name is Mary Martin. I am Adrian Harjo's mom. He sent me a copy of your message about ghost stories. Yes, I clearly remember my experience at Haskell Pocahontas Hall like it was yesterday. I posted my story about 20 years ago on the old Haskell Ghost Story site, which I just checked and now is no longer there. And I wish it was. I wish it was still there. I bet there's some good stuff on there. Or maybe I just can't find it. Anyway, I am glad to share again. I encourage you to be respectful and not unintentionally exploit my story. But yes, I want to share my story. Here it goes. It was the late fall of 1975 Thanksgiving holiday. Many of the students were gone for the holiday. For the rest of us, like me, we just had to stay. My parents couldn't afford to come and get me this time, but that was okay because I had made many new friends and just didn't think about it. The snow was coming down fast and heavy all day. My roommate had left the day earlier. I was sort of glad my parents couldn't come to get me because it would have had to travel back to the Kickapoo Res in the snowstorm. I was by myself in my room at Pocahontas Hall on the 2nd floor. I was in a deep sleep when I suddenly was awakened and shaken by a loud pounding on my door. I got up to answer the door, but there wasn't anyone there. I just thought friends were playing around. I closed my door and looked toward my window. My room lit up from the heavy snow that was still falling past midnight, enough for me to look around. I went back to bed, but not asleep yet, when I heard the pounding on my door again. I got up quickly again and opened the door, and no one was there. I looked down the halls, no one around, and it was just so quiet. I went back to my room and closed the door. Then I looked toward my window, and I could clearly hear what sounded like children playing outside my window. The wind was still blowing heavy. I paused a moment to listen. I first thought they were students trying to sneak back in without going through the front so they wouldn't get in trouble with the RA. Then I thought it is so cold outside that I was going to tell whoever it was to just get back inside. I was able to open my window, take a quick look down to see who was out there. I was stunned to see there wasn't anyone around and no footprints in the snow either. I could still clearly hear the sound of children or people laughing and talking in the distance. It sounded like the sounds were coming from the parking lot behind Pokey Hall, maybe. I closed my window and went down the stairs to talk to the RA and let her know what I had just heard. She said that she had did her rounds and she didn't hear anything. But then she told me the story about the children and that I wasn't the first one to ever tell a story like that. Then I was frightened so much that I asked if I could just stay downstairs and sleep on the couch. And she said, sure. And she gave me a blanket. That's awesome.
Awesome.
That's
Appreciate
a good
that.
one.
Oh.
Well, you've told stories about children playing or the sounds of children playing when you were at, was it II?
Yeah. That was at my so Donna Hall. I'll probably tell the story again because I'll give her credit. I'll give another one to II. But yeah, we were at her house or her casita, and it was family housing down at II, and there was like maybe 5 or 6 of us down there, and we're all just hanging out, having a good time. And then she had her window open, but the screen was down, but it was still open. And anyways, we're just all laughing, talking, joking around. And then like, I don't know who heard it, but somebody heard this faint like baby crying out in the distance. And there's there's a trench, and then beyond that there's some houses. But I mean, it's a big trench though. And so you could clearly hear this baby crying, and everybody just kind of stopped. We stopped what we're doing, and we're just looking at each other, asking if we're hearing this. And so everybody agrees we do hear it, and we're trying to figure out what we should do. And so this thing keeps stopping, and every time it stops, we don't hear it again, and we kind of just go back to being normal. But we're kind of like, well, maybe it's somebody out there, just walking around with their kid. Maybe they're walking and they're trying to get home. And all of a sudden, like, it gets closer, like it stops and it gets closer when it starts up again. And it keeps doing that same pattern. And finally, like, it's like pretty close. I mean, you could hear it like right, like maybe 50 yards away. And we're sitting there and we're trying to debate on like if it could be a panther, or it could be maybe a ghost. And then we're like, okay, well, maybe we should call the cops. Maybe they can go out there and help. And because we'll be out there all night. We don't have no flashlights or anything either. And then we kind of just start kind of trying to forget about it. And all of a sudden, like, it's right outside the window underneath where she lives. And it's right there. And you can just blaring out, crying. And she like runs over there and she shuts the window, and it's like moved all the way from, I don't know, 2 football fields away. You could hear it. It was loud. That was a lot loud to where her window is. And then we just kind of shut the window, and we don't really know what to say to each other. And somebody says, let's go out there. let's just go see, right? And there's no curtain on the window, and I'm not trying to look outside either. And we just kind of chill out. And as soon as she shuts that window, though, it stops crying. Like it knew, like, to stop crying. But man, like, that was like a crazy thing to like even like be around, because man, I was like, it might be a panther. I know panthers, like, they can sound like women screaming or even babies crying, but to move like that, have that same pattern, like it knew it was like tempting some people in that room. And I don't know, it just stopped, and we never even like thought about it. We never even went outside or anything. And we knew it was like, man, that's paranormal. That's got to be paranormal. I can't think of nothing else. Like, I know panthers are smart, but how would they know like to just go there? Mm-hmm. Like, so I don't know. And we just never. When we started this podcast, she was like, remember that time at my house when we heard that baby crying? I said, yeah. I still remember that from like 12 years ago, and it's still like fresh in my mind of just the night it was, and just eerie. Like, it was real weird too. It was scary. Like, I don't know. That was like a close encounter just from being there. So, but shout out to you. Hope everything is going good. And there's like more stories too about II, but I don't know if anybody else has any other stories they want to even the playing field. We got 3 now.
I mean, Haskell's going to get another one from me.
Yeah. If you guys are keeping score right now, you got OU 2, IA got 2.
3.
You got 2 from Sequoia, and guess Yahola's up again.
Yeah, I got another one for
Haskell
Haskell.
have 4, right?
Haskell will have 4. So this story, like I said, is out of Haskell, in Lawrence, Kansas. It's where this church is. This person, she wants to remain anonymous. This church is located on the edge of the campus, and it basically had this one experience that was kind of crazy. So I got pretty involved with this church and going over there. They had prayer meetings on certain days of the week, and I would go up there. Sometimes she would have church services in there as well. One night I went to one of their church meetings, and there was a woman there. The woman kind of gave her like a ick, like kind of not right. There wasn't anything that seemed out of the ordinary. She gave me a creepy feeling though, so I stayed away. She knew all the songs, sang loudly, acted appropriate, doing all the things that a person ought to do in church. They ended up breaking off into a heavy prayer, and after everything, I was doing my thing, praying with different people, and towards the end, most of the people have left. Well, there was still a small group of ladies, including this person who was leading this church, praying over the same, this is funny, the same creepy lady. She was laying on the floor on her stomach, and they had napkins under her face on the floor because she had been spitting and throwing up. We all stayed maybe another half hour until she goes, I don't know, something changed. It was palpable. This heavy feeling all around lifted, and it got really hot. Everyone was sweating. The lady on the floor was crying, and it was like the lighting in there. Something was different. And it had let go of that lady. Anyway, she got up off the floor, and that woman who they had been praying over, she did not even look the same. She did not even look like the same woman that came in. She had a totally different face.
Freaking Haskell, man.
Some stuff, man.
Haskell's got some stories, but again, if you're keeping count, you listeners are going to mark the winner on this episode. We got a story from Bacone College.
Ooh.
From Sonny Epinat. Again, he's got a story. He was going to school there in mid-90s, I believe that's what he said. He was up there on basketball scholarship. He was trying to do everything he can to, stay physically fit and be competitive. So he would get up early in the mornings, go run. Sometimes in the afternoon he'd go run. Even in the evening times, any chance he had, he would try to go run and exercise. If you ever been at Bacone College, they have an old gym there. They have dances, and they've had a lot of community activities there, even funerals there. Anyway, to make a long story short, he would run by that gym during certain times, and he'd hear people in there playing basketball. You hear those shoes squeak and those basketballs bouncing, and it sounded like people were in there practicing. And he never thought anything about it because he'd go for his run, try to get in some exercise in between classes. He'd run by there, and as time went on, he talked to his coach and said, "Are you having extra practices? If you are, I'd like to, come and work out." He goes, "No," he said, "if there's practices, I'll let the whole team know. And nobody's in there practicing." He said, "Is it open gym or what?" And I said, "No." He said, no open gym, guy." I said, it's just, when we have practice time, we have practice time, and that's the only time, you're scheduled to be in that gym. So if you're not scheduled, then don't be in there. So, he said, "Well, dang," he said, I keep hearing people, sound like they're practicing in there." He goes, "Well," he said, "there's nobody on my schedule, and nobody better not be in there." And so, anyway, he didn't think anything about it. So, went on to class, and, I guess he got out of class kind of late, and he had to go do some studying, and, he was kind of stressed out, so he thought he'd go for a run. So this was probably about 10 o'clock, and he knew, during that time they had curfew on campus, so he was trying to hurry up and get his run on, and he was going by that old gym, and he noticed the light was on. Then it went off, and he ran a little bit closer. He said it'd come back on, and it stayed, and then it went off. And by the time he got to that gym, he thought, well, the lights on in there. He said, I wonder who's in there. And he could hear, those shoes squeaking and sound like someone's practicing. So he said, I'm going to go in there and see if they let me work out with them. He went to the door and it was locked. And he looked inside. As soon as he looked in, the light went out.
Oh, man.
That was his story from Bacone.
Hey.
Got one from Bacone, but again, Haskell is tough right now. They got some stories. We got a story from Samantha Rakin, and I'm gonna let Tyler read this one again.
Hey, before I read this, remember that video that I sent you guys? I think I saw it on Reddit of that orb shooting hoops in that empty gym. It was like a light, and it would like trail, almost like a comet. It would like was it closed like a CCTV, like a security camera, like on a gym, and the gym was completely dark. I mean, I didn't say what time it was or anything. Man, and you saw this little orb of light, and it would go to like the key, and just like flare into the hole, and then go underneath and kind of bounce, and then it would circle out almost a half court and just and like shoot and just go like swish like right through the goal. Damn. And it did that, and then it was pretty cool, man. I thought I sent that to y'all. Maybe I didn't.
Steph Curry.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see.
You sent that in the chat?
I think so. I think I sent it. All right. So wait a minute. Hey, let me sure. Do I need to go all the way up? Okay.
Look at him going through there.
Nah,
don't mess it up. You's queued up, God.
Nah, man. Well, I'm telling my story, man, and I get kind of animated sometimes, and I was knocking stuff
What
around.
is this?
All right, it says here, Dear Chris, I never thought this. Oh, wait, what happened to me? I didn't even order a pizza that night. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. All right, it says, I have a story from when I went to Haskell. A few, really. I was there in 2017. I stayed in Pocahontas Hall, which was the freshman girls' dorm, and I had a few experiences that I suspect connect to this event, but none of it seems important until this happened. So my roommate was usually gone. She told me she didn't mind if my friends slept in her bed if they stayed the night. So one of my friends did just that. We were up late talking. We finally go to bed. I don't sleep well at night, so I was laying there awake, and I hear her making these creepy sounds like she is asleep, but she's trying to talk. It just translates to creepy, garbled noises. I start kind of yelling over there to wake her up. She finally does. She was freaking out, telling me that she had a vision or a dream or something. She said it felt very real. She saw an old Indian man in jeans and a cowboy hat standing over there by me, looking at me. She started telling him to get away from me. The man goes over to her and grabs her arm. She's trying to yell at me to wake me up. She said that the man starts talking and his words start coming out of her mouth. She couldn't remember what he was saying, but when she woke up... She couldn't remember what he was saying when she woke up, but all the noises were him trying to talk to me. We prayed hard and never went to sleep the rest of the night. That's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's from Haskell?
That's
again?
from Haskell again.
Haskell's
running away with it.
I know, it's over. It might be over. Unless you got II loaded up.
I have my own.
Ooh.
Hey, okay.
Well, I was going to say that Pocahontas Hall, I always hear a lot of stuff from that one, too. And that's where that was? Mm-hmm. That Pocahontas Hall?
Yes.
Golly. No, I was looking for Tyler's basketball video.
Oh, yeah. I thought I sent that to y'all.
I don't know. When did you send that, you think?
A while back.
I was wanting to try to put it on here so people can watch it, too.
Man, it was wicked.
If you find it, let me know.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I graduated from Northeastern State University out of Tahlequah, and I got one to put them on the board. So in Seminary Hall, there's a lot of stories that have come out of that Seminary Hall building, and I used to talk to my teacher. He was an old guy. Like this dude was old. Like he could barely walk up the stairs. Like, man, he was struggling. And I asked him. I said, why are you never here past a certain time? And he kind of like didn't really want to answer it. He finally ended up saying this place is haunted. So the old president of the university back in the old days haunts that building up in the upper floor. there's been times where janitors have quit. They've just been like, man, I'm not doing this no more. Like, basically, essentially, it sounds like somebody's walking inside in the walls, like on the ceiling. There's been a few janitors quit working there. Like, they'd work overnights after the kids would get gone. The story now, I guess, is that kind of the story to get Northeastern State on the board, or is that one? Because I got another one. I'm gonna keep racking them up. I got to make sure we represent. No, but so the story that this comes from somebody who I used to run around with. So when you're walking, the campus has changed in the front part, but that turn when you're going down Downing, and you make that turn, there's a left, and you go up to the seminary hall. It's kind of on a little bit of a hill. They were walking home one night, and they kept seeing. This is where I mentioned off air about the peeper. They were walking, and somebody was doing this behind the trees, following them. Well, when I was a freshman, they put out there used to be an app that you use where security, like when someone's in danger. Mm-hmm. They brought that out and they said, "Hey, we've been getting reports of somebody following somebody behind, like as they're walking towards Seminary Hall from Downing, because the main stretch." Shout out to Ned's. I know. There's a lot of people in Tahlequah like Ned's. People be walking home from Ned's. No, but they'll walk up to the campus, and there's a little sidewalk that goes down Downing, but you can go up through there and get to the Indian dorms over there. And but they've been getting reports of somebody literally, like, they'd look behind them and there'd be somebody looking at them behind the tree, but like black shadow. They'd be looking like that, and then they'd turn back around to walk, and it'd be at the next tree, like doing the same thing. But like I said, there's all types of creepy stuff out there, and I remember like I said, my friend had he was telling me, he's like, man, yeah, I thought I saw somebody follow me, like all the way, like, and then the last tree, it's kind of off from the side of the building, and he said that shadow just did it, was like this all the way until he got to the dorm. I was like, nah, that's crazy.
The peeper.
The peeper.
Oh God.
He's coming for you.
That's a song.
That's his theme song. His theme music.
See that head come up from the back of the TV?
Golly. But yeah, so that's 2 for Northeastern State. I had to drop those 2 real quick, get us on the board. Can't be over now.
Yeah. Well, I got another one from Bacone College.
Hey, there we go.
From Muskogee, Oklahoma. It's about the Adelo Lodge Museum.
Oh.
You guys know anything about that? Then you guys already know. But anyway, this individual wants to be anonymous, but wanted their story to be told. They had did what they call it, work study. They were scheduled to working at Adelo Lodge Museum. As you guys might know or don't know, they got Indian art from all over Indian country. They have the world's, well, I won't say the world's, but they have the local biggest collection of Kachina dolls. And they used to have all these pipes from all different tribes, what do you call it, recreations, and they had even some old artifacts. So they've got some old artwork and things like that in there, some what some tribes would call sacred items, and you always hear stories of hearing footsteps walking in there, or you might see a shadow in there. And this individual, was young, on work study, scheduled to work in there, and they put her in there, and a lot of times she was in there by herself. They had like a little gift store in there, that she's to work, and a lot of times she would see someone walk past that door, and they always tell them, if you can, go and greet them, and talk to them, and also let them know that the museum is taking up donations, and stuff. So anyway, dang, scaring the dog.
I thought that was I thought that was your stomach growling.
Golly.
You put that pizza away.
Now I know it. God, the pizza talking to me. Miccosukee language right now. So, got to go to the O. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway,
Exercise that demon.
God, pray on me. No, God. Smoke me off right now, Russell. No, I'm just kidding. But no, she said, she was in there by herself. She kept seeing something walk by. So she'd get up and she'd go and look, and she wasn't really thinking about it, but she said, "Oh, maybe it's my imagination," because I didn't even hear the door open. So she went back in there and sat back on her little chair and was just kind of reading the paper. And anyway, she said she thought she heard some voices in the exhibit room, and so she said, "Dang, maybe somebody did come in. Maybe they went to the restroom when I went out there." So she went back out there and looked around. Didn't see nobody. She went and checked the restrooms. And of course, there wasn't nobody there. And she said, "Well, that's weird." She said, "Well, maybe it was one of the we call it supervisor or something. Went upstairs or something." And she was told not to go upstairs. So she said, "Well, they're probably up there." So. Anyway, she went back in and that little area, was waiting. She heard the door open and close, and she was sitting there just waiting for somebody to walk by. Nobody walked by, so she was curious. She said, so she got up. She went and opened the door to look to see if that person may have walked out. And of course, there was nobody on campus at that time, and. Anyway, she went back in. She wasn't really thinking about it, and she was sitting there, and it was time for her to go on to class. So she called upstairs and to tell her supervisor that she was going on to class, but nobody picked up. So she got out. And she walked up there just to make sure, because she didn't want to get in trouble. So. Anyway, that supervisor told her, said, if she had to leave, just make sure you lock the door. So anyway, she went up there, and there was nobody up there, so she went out and locked the door and went on to class. So anyway, next day, she came back and did her other shift, was telling her supervisor what she experienced. And, of course, her supervisor told her, there's a lot of old things in this building, and, sometimes you might hear things or see things, and they're not here to hurt you or harm you, and, so don't let it scare you. These are just old things. And so she said, I don't know about that. She didn't really believe, and she didn't really grow up around her people. And anyway, she went in there and took her shift, and that supervisor took off, and she was the only one in that building again. And this time, she thought she saw a woman walk by, that doorway again. And she got up, she went and looked, and she said, "Well, I'm going to talk to it and say, I'm here to work, don't be bothering me." And she said, "You're scaring me." And she said, out of that office, she heard a laughter. Mm. And she said she barreled out of there, locked up, and then told him, said she didn't ever want to be back in that museum again. That was her story. Mm. What
man. That was a Bacon?
Bacon.
I heard like a similar story over the weekend or last weekend. I don't know if it's Bacon or Haskell, but we'll give them each a point because I can't remember. But they were saying like they're in a dorm room, and what is it called? A dorm matron? Is that who that person is that checks on the students and stuff, make sure there's nothing going on and stuff. I know it's called RA now, but I think they called it a dorm matron back then. But so they're like, I don't know, they're just hanging out in somebody's room, and it said this person that checks around, they know when she's coming. They could hear her heels hit the floor every time she's coming down the hallway. And they said it's probably like 10, 11, and they're telling ghost stories. And so they're just like in there getting spooked or whatever. And so they heard her coming through the hallway because they heard the heels hitting the floor. And so they're like, oh, here she comes. Should we, hide or, because I guess she would open a door and check, see if everything was okay. And then, and if it was too late, then they wouldn't get in trouble. She would just say like, go back to your room, go hang out in your room or whatever. So anyways, they said they heard these footsteps coming down the hallway, and they're just like, they could see underneath the door because the light was outside. And so they said walked past the door they were at, the dorm they were in, and then it walked back to where they were. So they could see the feet, like the shadow of the feet underneath the door. And it just stood there, like in the front, like on the other side of the dorm room. It just stood there. And it wasn't doing anything. And they're just kind of like, what is she doing? They were whispering around, like, what is she doing? Like, is she going to come in or what? And it just stood there. And so finally, like, one of them said, man, I'm just going to open the door. And she ran over there, opened the door, nobody was there.
Dang.
And so after that, they quit telling ghost stories.
Man.
Yeah, and then it was creepy though, because they heard the heels hitting the floor, so it was like, oh, she's coming around, so let's try to be quiet.
Yeah, so I went to Bacon for 1 year. I played basketball there, and we used to mess around in the dorms, and I can't remember what those dorms were called. They were on campus, not the ones that were the old hotel. God, those are nasty, anyways. But God, they's nasty. Anyways, but so we were like, usually all the basketball players would be over here in this certain area, football players and another dorm, and one of the football players was dating, and I think she was a Navajo girl, one of the football players, and I can't remember if it was a football player or basketball player, because I remember. God, never mind, I ain't gonna say nothing. But anyways, everybody was wilding out. But so basically, anyways, somebody was dating this chick, and she had said, "Hey, you can't do these things to me, or I don't want to be. If I don't want something, my friend will get you." And like the person who I was talking to, they were telling me this, and I'm like, "What do you mean?" They're like, "Yeah, something has followed her back from her Navajo res, that protects her." And if you do anything to her, it'll come for you. It'll be like in your dreams or something like that. And I remember one of the football players, he was having like night terrors. I guess he's messing around with her. And yeah, he was really getting messed with. He was from like Michigan or somewhere. He wasn't from no res or nothing, didn't know nothing. Yeah, but yeah, I guess he was messing around, cheating on her, doing whatever, and it came for him when he was having like screaming in his dreams and just all types of crazy stuff.
Oh God!
Oh no! But yeah, that's from Bacon. My 1 year there, man, there was a lot of weird stuff. Like one thing too that like when you walk in, there's the gym area, like there's the main hall where the gym is to your right, the new gym, and you walk on down. There's a cafeteria. Then there's sometimes you think you're in the cafeteria area, like with people, you look around, ain't nobody there. It's like shuffling. It's always something, always noises, in the walls. I spent 1 year there, didn't stay in the dorms or anything because my parents don't live too far, but yeah, it's real creepy out there back home, especially at night. Like I'd be walking in my car after basketball practice or after a game, and you always, something's always behind you. You always kind of look. I used to get real scared coming out of that gym at night, like we'd have night practice, because it always feel like somebody was right behind you, like just right behind you. So, yeah, Bacon's creepy for sure.
Mm. All right, I hope you guys at home are keeping score. And again, if you didn't represent your school, that's on you. At this time, I'm getting ready to tell a story about Oklahoma State University.
Oh.
Go Pokes! Oh. So anyway, we're getting ready to.
They've entered the chat.
We're getting ready to Start it up right now. We're going to start counting coup right now.
Now, Chris was on his phone texting everybody.
I know. I said, y'all better give me something,
You
though.
gotta bring the heat.
So you expect. No, it's just. Anyway, of course, I went to school at Oklahoma State University. And, I guess it was like the year before I went up there. This was kind of I guess what you would say, kind of a known story. It was one of the football players. He had a motorcycle. Him and his girlfriend. They were going to tumbleweeds. If any of you guys know about Stillwater, how famous tumbleweeds
Yeah, no
are.
comment on that.
Famous country singer come from tumbleweeds. Again, everybody always had to go out there and. Anyway, he was driving his motorcycle, one of those ninjas. I don't know if you guys remember what those ninjas look like, but him and his girlfriend was riding around, and they had been really drinking it up, and he lost control on that road close to tumbleweeds. He went off into the grass, and of course they both died, but he almost got his head cut off, from that barbed wire fence. And of course she got thrown and broke her neck. And they said he was speeding through that road, trying to get to tumbleweeds. I guess something was going on. Anyway, they say even to this night or to this day, you travel down that road. You might feel a wind go by you, or you'll hear that humming of that motorcycle. That and or you'll feel a wind, or you'll hear a scream. Well, again, like I was saying, this was a year after this passed. People still was talking about this on campus. Anyway, I was new to the area, and I was trying to join these different clubs and stuff, as you do as a student, trying to, get to know people and stuff. And a group of us was going out there to tumbleweeds. We were going to do homework. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway.
Bible study.
Bible study at the tumbleweed.
God. Anyway, we were going to preach to those heathens out there, like that way. No,
standing outside, huh?
Anyway,
tell them not to go in there.
Of course,
it's too much fun.
Of course, our car broke down.
Oh man.
So they had to pull over. We had a flat, and of course, as young college students, a lot of people don't have a spare. So we was sitting out there. There was about 5 of us, sitting on the side of the road waiting for somebody to come by. And anyway, we were all out there. And this was 11 o'clock because I remember it like it was yesterday, and it was 11 o'clock at night. And we all heard this from the distance of real loud humming. And we felt the wind go right by us. We all felt it. You felt that wind, that whew. And then in the faint, you heard a scream. And at that time, nobody was really thinking about, everybody was just thinking about trying to get out to tumbleweeds and then get back home and, stuff like that. And, but we all experienced that, and everybody started, kind of asking, what that was, kind of thinking. And then one of the guys that was there said, well, don't y'all remember, so-and-so passed away on this road. They say sometimes you might hear or see things. And, we were still standing out there, kind of discussing this. And, we all was looking at each other after they said that. And out of the dark, you heard a woman crying. And that's all I got to say on that one.
Man, God.
Whoa.
OSU got on the board with a heater, man. Chris is gonna be known for having heat, man. That's what he's known for, man.
OSU is now in the running.
Man, wow.
I'd never heard of that story, but I know tumbleweeds. No, I was kidding.
I know it very well.
You was out there every night. No.
God.
Wasn't even a student. No.
He
Got his
graduated 5
picture
years
on the
ago.
wall.
I'd come down from New Mexico just to tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
Dang, 6-hour trip to and from.
No, but so me and Robin Jackson were talking about IA stories and on the Turtle Island Boys, and I don't know, we just started like because he was asking, he's like, "What was your paranormal stuff?" And I told him about our college episode we got coming out, and then I told him like this one where it was probably like midnight and it was finals week, and so my roommate was gone and he was in the studio painting. And because I messaged him, I said, "Hey man, where you at?" He said, "Oh, painting for finals or whatever." I said, "Just leave the door unlocked." I was like, "All right, cool." So, I mean, the door was unlocked anyway. So, because we would all just like go to each other's dorms and barge in and just mess with each other and stuff. And so, anyways, like it was a quiet night and I was alone. And so, went to my bed. I put my iPod on. And I just was listening to music, and I was going to fall asleep to music, and then I shut all the lights off, and it was dark in there. And I just remember having some music playing. All of a sudden, like, on my bed, there was, like, this weight. Like, somebody sat down on, like, my bed by my feet. And so they sat down, and they just sat there. And I felt it, and I was just like, well, I wonder who that is. And I paused my music. And I just kind of was sitting there, and I was like, "Who is that?" Like I was like, just jokingly saying stuff, and I was like, "Who's there?" And nobody answered me. And then I was just like sitting there or laying there, and then this whatever it was just sitting there. And then I didn't think nothing like spooky or scary or anything, and I was just like, "Well, for real, who's there?" Oh God! But I was like, "For real, who's there? Like, who is that?" And so. Nobody answered, and my light switch is right by my bed. And so I was like, all right, well, and I turned the light switch on. As soon as I did that, my bed shifted back to normal, and like nothing was there. And I looked around, and I was just like, what was that? What the heck was that? And then I messaged my roommate, Lance, and I said, when you coming back? And he said, man, I won't be done. I'll probably be here all night. And I was like, man. I had every light on, my bathroom light on. I had all the lights on in the room. I had the TV on. And I was like, dang, was that a ghost? Like, was that really like a paranormal experience, like personal? And I just couldn't believe it. And I think I went to somebody else's room and I told Lance what happened. I said, bro, like, if you're going to be there all night, you might as well just stay there. I was like, because I think there's a ghost in here. And so I went to Rob or Natani's room. I went to somebody's room and I just like crashed out on the floor. I told him what happened, and yeah, I was kind of freaked out. I went back that next day, and I think Lance had some stuff, and I think he like smudged it out or something. So, but that was pretty crazy. I mean, I sit back and think about like how I was talking to it, and if something would have answered back,
oh,
you
man. Oh no.
All right.
Man, man, okay.
I know it. I thought someone was going to have to give you a whole lot, some Tums over here.
Man.
The dog.
That pizza.
It's that pizza,
Oh,
man.
man, y'all the only two that ate it.
I know
Dang.
it.
Bubble
We're
guts.
hurting.
Right, man.
All right. I'm glad to hear these stories again. I hope you guys are keeping count on there. Again, I'm getting ready to tell another story from Oklahoma State University.
Man.
I better get a go poke, so I ain't going to say nothing. It's going to be quiet over here. No. Ah. Okay. Anyway, again, this is about Oklahoma State University there in Stillwater, Oklahoma. You know, this was, again, their old student union. You know, it was before it was revised. Right now, their student union is real good looking. You know, it's got a lot of restaurants and all kinds of stuff in there. But, you know, it wasn't as fancy when I was going there, you know, as it is today. And anyway, to make a long story short, you know, I had a tutoring session. You know, they had group tutorings during there in the student union. And on the second level where near the ballroom. There's a ballroom that's in there. You know, the other side is like study sessions. You know, you can do. They had a lot of tutoring sessions and writing programs that you could go and get help in there. So I was in there. This was late. It was probably about 9:30 at night. They scheduled us to be in there at 9:30. There was probably about 7 of us in this little tutoring session. Anyway, to make a long story short, you know, by that ballroom, it's all, what do you call it? It's got that real clean floor. And if you walk on it, especially with dress shoes, you can hear it. Clap, 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 clap. And again, you know, there was about 7 of us in this session. And we kept hearing this walking back and forth, you know, up and down that hallway all through this session. And one of the girls, you know, she said, you know, I just can't concentrate. You know, whoever's out there pacing, you know, can someone go out there and tell them, you know, not to pace? Because, you know, you could tell this was dress shoes. You could hear that clop, 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 clop. Anyway, so one of the guys said, yeah, I'll go out there and, you know, ask him, you know, either take off his shoes or, you know, go sit down or something. So he went out there and in the hallway, and he came back and he said, I couldn't find nobody out there. Soon as he said that, you heard clop, 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 clop. And so he turned around, went back out there, and as soon as he stepped out that door, it stopped. And the lady that was holding that tutoring, that's all she needed to hear. She said, well, we'll pick this up tomorrow. And so that was the end of that.
Got out of there.
Dang.
Man, I'm going to have to throw this back to old school. I got a story. This is from, so I graduated from Fort Gibson High School. And so this is Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. In the intermediate building, which is at the time held freshmen. I was a sophomore. I think it had freshmen and some sophomore classes, but man, I'm terrible at math. I'm trash. Terrible. And so I was getting some tutoring from the geometry teacher. I think it was geometry, whatever it was. It was math. And so his room, this hallway wasn't like a normal hallway. It was like you had 4 walls and it was a circular hallway that went around in a circle. Then you went through the back and then it was a straight shot hallway. Well, in that hallway there was no windows. So once you hit those lights, the only light you have is from the doors of the classrooms. And after basketball practice, I went over there and I was like, man, I need some help, you know, blah, blah, blah. He helped me out. He's an old guy. He's a preacher too. So we're sitting there, and all of a sudden out of the corner of my eye, I seen somebody walk by in the darkness, just right outside the light. And I'm like, what was that? And I think he noticed I kept looking over there because it was like someone was walking in a circle of that. And just right outside the light. Not like, and you know how if a normal person would probably walk through the light, but this was walking right outside that light. And I think he noticed me, kept looking over there at it, and I was like, what is that? And he just walks over there, doesn't say anything, quiet as a mouse, just gets up and closes the door. So I'm like, that's weird. So fast forward to my senior year, I started asking questions, asking things, and so the guy who was the tutor who was tutoring me, the geometry teacher, he had back in his younger teaching years, he had mentored a very young child who had later passed on. And that child follows him, basically, into that building. And one of the other teachers who has, so this hallway is a circular hallway. His is at the very corner. This other teacher's is at right as soon as you walk into the hall, that little circular hall. She's down here. And there'd be times where them two would be the only 2 people in there, you know, trying to finish up, you know, grade papers, whatever. And she used to roll this ball. Like she had this ball and would roll it down at the end of the hallway. And that ball would roll back. But it wouldn't be like, you know, she'd roll it and then it'd immediately come back. And she'd roll it and she'd kind of get back to whatever she's doing. And then notice that the ball was right back to where it was. I was like, ugh. So I guess, like I said, it was some kid that teacher had mentored when he was a young guy, when he was a young teacher. And he had passed away due to some family issues. And they went out there, and I hate that I missed this, but I had a basketball game. they took some of the seniors out there that that year I graduated, and they went in there and they basically rolled that ball down that dark hallway, and then went down the other way to do some more investigating. They came back and that ball was sitting at the end of that hall. I was like, man. But yeah, that's Fort Gibson High School. That's where I graduated, and yeah, it's got some spooky things in there too. That's kind of weird.
Dang. High schools. Have you guys heard anything about Sequoia? Tahlequah Sequoia?
Yeah, we told those at the very beginning of the episode.
No, I mean, like, have you guys heard of the Elbow Lady?
Oh, yes. Do you have a story?
I was just told, like, by my brother. He growing up, because he went to school there, and he was just saying that one time they're in their dorms, and it was nighttime, and it's always scary because I guess the bathroom was, I don't know how the dorms look back then and now. I'm sure they're different, but there was just like in the hallway, there's the bathroom. And so it was always like a scary thing to get up in the middle of the night to go outside of your dorm in the hallway to use the bathroom. Because the only light outside was a red exit sign light. And it was so bright, that's the only light you could see in there. And so I think somebody said that they went to use the bathroom, and when they came out, they seen the shadow like in that corner, like underneath that light. And then it was they couldn't figure out what it was, and so they just kept standing there like trying to figure out, like, is that a person or is it somebody messing with me? But it was like 4 a.m., 3 a.m., and all of a sudden, like, this thing just started rolling up on its elbows, like, I guess in a fast way, like just going towards him. He took off back to his dorm, shut the door, and that thing was like, you could see the shadow just like at his door. And it was like, he told me that, and I like flipped my stuff. I was like, oh, what? I was like, no way, dude. He's like, no, yeah. He's like, that's what they were saying. And he's like, I can't remember if he said he had any experience with that, but that was like just one story he told us, because we were telling scary stories one time, and this was back in 04, 03, and man, I'll never forget that. But I don't know, I've never heard any other stories about that.
Yeah, there's all types of stories. I remember. Now I don't know if this was a security guard, but I had heard a story maybe from a security guard, and he was telling some stories about the security office and them seeing something like that, like they call her Elbow Lady. Mm-hmm. I know. Now, shout out to Woodall Wildcats. That's where I went to elementary school. They had I'd heard they had these bathrooms that did stuff. They had like a lady that they saw if they said her name 3 times in those bathrooms. I can't remember. I cannot for the life of me remember what the name was. But yeah, there's stuff out there, especially Tahlequah Sequoia. That Elbow Lady, I've heard. I can't off the top of my head think about it, but yeah, there's been multiple stories. I don't know if Chris, you heard anything about that.
The only thing I've heard about a Elbow Lady is one of those Sun Eagle girls. No, I'm just teasing. No, I've heard some, but I can't remember them. But I had a story from Riverside Indian School.
Hey, there we go.
Again, if you guys are familiar with Riverside Indian School, that's one of the oldest boarding schools here for Native students that are still active today. And I know there's a lot of graduates coming out of there, and there's a lot of activity. And anyway, to make a long story short, I had 3 different people tell me this same story, and each one of them, 2 of them worked there, and one of them's a prior student. And they all kind of wanted to keep their selves anonymous. So anyway, the story goes they have a football field out there. God, get choked
God.
up. No, maybe I shouldn't have told that story. No. God. Dang, I don't know.
Out,
I think that's it for me. No, I'm just kidding. But no, the story goes is, they say that at night you can see children running up and down that football field, or you'll see people standing out there. When you go out there, they're not out there. Also, they talk about this one dorm, the laundry room, that, you'll always hear things, or things will slam those dryers or those washing machines. And they'll do it right in front of you. So anyway, they say, if you go in there to do laundry, try not to go in there by yourself. So anyway, those are a couple of stories that they tell about Riverside. Again, if you guys got stories and you didn't hear your school represented, please send it to us.
Yes.
Yeah,
If man, we'll go ahead and do a part 2, because I know there's more stories, and for real, like, send us your stories about being in college, your paranormal experiences, and we're always down to read them on the show and have this competition. I think Haskell may have won it.
Haskell took the.
No, I disagree on that. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you was last, but
they was too, though. They really was. They was this time.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to say Haskell brought it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I think Bacone got second.
Yeah.
It's a close second, and then
Riverside.
Riverside.
I mean, Sequoia.
Sequoia's
oh,
third.
yeah, Sequoia.
Sequoia's third. Yeah, we appreciate y'all sending those stories in, because that's one thing that, my childhood was spent a lot of times in that Tahlequah area. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I know that there's people from I know Kenwood Elementary School, middle school. I know Woodall has some stories. I know Ten Killer, Briggs, Lowry, all these indigenous type schools. I know y'all got some stuff. Tahlequah, Sequoia. I know Chris mentioned Riverside. I know there's some Anadarko. I didn't hear no Anadarko stories. I was asking around about that. I ain't heard no Anadarko stories. So if y'all got them, send them.
Chris, you know anything about Jones Academy before we cut it?
Yeah, there's actually several stories from down that way. They have, I don't know what you call it, a common area that, you constantly see children in there. And again, Jones's is also an old boarding school, but it's also very, I don't know how you say, prestigious school today. But far as the history of it goes, I mean, they've had a lot of turmoil over in that area, and again, they have that Jones Academy area in itself. They've got a lot of how you say, tribal facilities off in that area. They used to they still have it. It's like a substance abuse what do you call it, halfway house for men and women that is very, very active. And Jones Academy themselves, again, they're like Riverside. You've had a lot of kids, go there and, kind of lose themselves, for whatever reason. And anyway, my understanding, they may have not have passed away there at actually Jones or Riverside, but those kids always come back to go to school.
Ooh.
Man.
Yeah. So send your stories in, everybody, from the places we just mentioned. We'll go ahead and cut it here. Go ahead and give out your personals to.
So you Hold a Tiger on Facebook, War Cry Podcast, available everywhere basically. Let's see, TikTok, One Man Band 918. I'll go ahead and plug Tyler. He's got Scoden Cinema on Instagram, Tyler Randall on Facebook. He's got his Pump Action Podcast, which is like an 80s action. He just released Crocodile Dundee as an episode. Go follow him, and I'll kick it over to Chris.
You can find me at Christopher Honka Hill on Instagram and TikTok. Mado.
Yep. Russell Sunny Gold, my personal on Facebook. You can add me on Instagram at Russmus49, at Okie Podcast. Check out Turtle Island Boys as well. It's my other podcast I'm a part of. Follow us here at Unsolved Reservation Mysteries on Instagram. Follow us on TikTok at reservation_mysteries. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Unsolved Mysteries of the Reservation. Hit that bell to get notified when we drop new content. And yeah, so I think that's it. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Send us your stories, and we will read it and smudge up.
But